Welcome to Funk's Life in the UK. This is my very first video, so please bear with me if I'm blubbering a lot. If you are a university student and you're looking for an internship or a full-time job, this video is for you. I'm going to give you an overview of how you can prepare yourself to increase your chances of getting an internship or full-time job after your studies. Let's start with introductions. My name is Fang and I'm originally from Thailand and I did my bachelor's in software engineering in the UK. I was an international student and I went through the exact same experience of trying to find internships and jobs like you are right now. Since graduating, I've been working for 5 years at 3 different companies. And during this time, I've been helping a lot of students applying for jobs, doing CV reviews, interview prep, optimizing LinkedIn, all the way to advising them on how to negotiate offers and also even boosting their morale after they get rejections. I realized that most students that I'm mentoring often have the same questions and misconceptions, so I wanted to do a video to address those and get them out to the wider audience. This video is aiming at university students in the UK. Whether you're bachelor's, master's, or PhD, I'm sure there's some things you can learn from this. If you're an international student, I've added a section on graduate and work visa in the back, so don't forget to check that out. Let's start with what positions should you apply for. If you are in the last year of your course, you should apply for what's called the graduate program or the graduate scheme, which is the role they're hiring fresh graduates into. It doesn't matter if it's bachelor's, master's, or PhD. I personally know a PhD student who joined the graduate program as well. Some students who have a few years of experience before doing their master's try to apply for roles as professionals rather than graduates, but they got rejected simply because they are seen as a new grad. So unless you've got like massive experience before you do your master's degree, it's very unlikely that they will take you into a professional role rather than a graduate role. If you're in your second or third year of your bachelor's degree, then you should apply for internships or placement, whichever your course allows. One thing to make sure is that the internship is taking place during your school holidays because internships can have multiple intakes. It can be summer, fall, or winter intake. I'm stressing this because I know a few people who put in a lot of effort into the interviewing, got an offer just to realize that they can't take the internship offer because it's overlapping with their term time. So make sure you're applying for the right role, taking place at the right time. Application timeline. When should you apply for jobs? This is the most important thing that I want to talk about because it is the biggest mistake that I've seen students make. Most students are applying for roles way too late. What I mean with that is, for example, master students would wait until they're almost graduating before they even start applying, which is already too late. Large companies, let's say Fortune 500 companies, they are accepting job applications for graduate roles in October. They do interview around November, December time, and they give out offers by December, January. Even though the application opens in October, you won't start working until September the following year, which by then you'll already be graduating. This means that, for example, if you're a master's student starting your course in September, you need to be prepared to apply for jobs in October. The same thing goes for internships. Applications are open in October, but the internship itself takes place in June to August the following year. I found that one of the reasons that students make this mistake is because they think that they just started studying the course, they don't have a degree or any experience, so they wait until they have a degree before they start applying. But I want to tell you that when you're applying for a graduate role, companies expect that. They know you're a student. So interview and selection process accounts for that fact already. So start applying early. The other way you can prepare yourself in is by being aware of what resources are available at your university. Every university has what's called a career service. They offer things like CV clinics, career fair, mock interviews, or sessions on interview prep. Career fairs are especially good because you have company representatives coming to meet students and you can ask them questions and learn more about the company before you even applying. Most university offers this support to alumni who graduated within up to 2 years as well. So make sure you make the best use of your university's resources. Next up is the application funnel. I want you to think of the application process as a funnel where you have to pass through one before you can go to the next one. Now, this funnel starts with the CV review. If your CV matches the skills they're looking for, then you'll go to the next stage, which is usually things like an HR call or a technical screening. After that, you'll pass on to the main interview, which can be technical or behavioral or even group exercises, depending on where you're applying to. Now, this may seem really obvious to you, but the reason I'm mentioning is because when you realize that it's a funnel and you're struggling at certain points in it, you'll know which part you need to improve and which part you're doing well. One example is, let's say you're applying for a lot of companies, but you're not passing through the CV stage. Like no one's calling you back, you're not getting any emails back, nothing. Then perhaps it's better to look at your CV if they're actually matching the roles that you're applying for, or if you need to make any improvements to it before you actually start preparing for the technical interview. There is a misconception among some of the students I mentored that CVs are not important because companies are going to invite you for interviews, and that's when you can really show what you know, and they're just preparing for the technical side of it. But that is wrong, because if your CV doesn't match what they're looking for, they don't have the time and the resources to invite everyone to the interview. So make sure that you know how the funnel works and make sure you know where you're stuck at before you proceed into the next step. Now, I'm not saying just optimize your CV and applying for the right jobs without even preparing for technical side. What I mean is you have to do both, but also know where you're struggling with in the funnel. Another common question I get is, where do I apply for jobs and how many places should I apply to? Now, before I get into that, I would like to tell you about the concept of net fishing versus spear fishing. So with net fishing, you throw a net and you might get all kinds of fish. They might not be the ones you want, but you'll get some fish. But if you do spear fishing, you just stand there with a spear, waiting until the fish you want is swimming by, and then you just boom, and then you get the one fish, but it's exactly the kind of fish you want. So this metaphor works for job hunting as well. You can apply everywhere and put in little effort. You may or may not get the result you want, like net fishing, or you can focus on a few places that you really want, do a lot of research into their application process, and do really well in them. You need to decide which kind of job hunting you'd like to do. The one that I would usually recommend is to do spear fishing. List out all the companies you want to apply for, go to their website, subscribe to their career newsletter. You'll get notified when they are accepting applications, so you'll be the first ones to apply, which the sooner you apply, the better. Depending on your industry, I'm sure there are lists of big names that you would like to work for. For me, I'm in the tech industry, so companies that are my top choices would be Meta, Google, Apple, Amazon, and so on. If you're in consulting, you might be thinking of McKinsey or Bain & Co. If you need inspiration for company names, what I usually advise is that you should look at Fortune 500 companies. So larger companies usually have a very nice and structured graduate program because they have an intake of graduate students every year. So they know very well what they're doing, and they have a nice and clear career path progression. The second method, which I think is probably more popular but less effective in my opinion, is to apply through job websites like Indeed, LinkedIn, Reed, Monster. The reason I say this might be less effective is because jobs advertised on those platforms sometimes get too many unqualified candidates. Imagine the easy apply option in LinkedIn. It's just one click and you're already applying to it. So they might get too many candidates to even look at that. That's why I would recommend you always go to your company's website directly and apply there or subscribe to their newsletters. Another reason is because for larger companies, they usually have advices on what they're looking for in candidates, and also how you can prepare for the interview. I already mentioned when you should apply, but I also want to add that the sooner you apply, the better it is. This is because headcounts are filled on a rolling basis. What this means is that let's say a company is accepting graduate role applications and they have headcount of 20. If you're applying the very first week it opens, you're more likely to get invited for an interview if your CV is good. But if you're applying a month after it opens, by that time they probably have shortlisted candidates who are doing the last stage of the interview, or there are candidates who have accepted their offers, which means that the headcount may have already been filled. Companies do not wait until the application closing date before they start looking at CVs. They are interviewing candidates on a rolling basis as CVs come in, and they could be filling the headcount before the application even closes. So the sooner you apply, the higher your chances of getting the job. This last section is for international students, and I'm going to talk about graduate versus skilled worker visa. Let's start with the graduate visa. You can apply for this after you complete your course, and it allows you to stay and work in the UK for 2 years if you graduate with a bachelor's or master's degree, or 3 years if you're graduating with a PhD without needing a visa sponsorship. It costs around £700 to £800 to apply, and you need to pay for the health surcharge too. And these 2 years or 3 years that you're staying with this graduate visa doesn't count towards your ILR if you're planning to stay here until you get ILR and citizenship. The other kind is the skilled worker visa. Now, there's a few criteria in order to get one. First of all, it can only be issued by a company who hold its license to sponsor. Not every company has this license. So if you're applying for a job and you need sponsorship, make sure they are offering it before you even apply. The second criteria is your job needs to be eligible for the visa. Not every job is eligible. I've included the link from gov.uk so you can check if your job you're interested in applying is eligible or not. Third criteria is there is a minimum salary. I think the current one is 26,000 per year. Usually the company that sponsors you will pay for the visa application costs, and you don't need to pay the health surcharge like you would if you were applying for a graduate visa, because you will pay national insurance once you start working. And also the years that you are under a skilled worker visa can count towards the ILR, unlike the graduate visa, which doesn't count towards ILR. The usual process is that you apply for a company that holds a license to sponsor and your job is eligible and they are paying you the minimum salary for the skilled worker visa. And then you get the offer. After you get the offer, the company will issue what's called a COS or Certificate of Sponsorship, which you then use that in your application to apply for the visa. So this is it. Thank you so much for staying this long with me. I hope that was useful. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, or if there's any questions you have, I'm more than happy to answer them. Also, I'm planning to do a couple more videos where I would like to deep dive into things like CVs, interview prep, or optimizing LinkedIn. If there's any topic in particular that you'd like me to cover, please let me know and I'm more than happy to cover them. Thanks. Bye bye.